Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
This is a catastrophe.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
That's what I wished for when I blew out my candle.
Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
The floor is yours.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Wednesday. About half the work week in the rearview mirror. Appreciate you hanging out with us on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools. Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali back there on the ones and twos. Fired up you're here with us. And a lot going on in the world of National Signing Day. It's still National Signing Day in my eyes. Maybe that's not the proper term. I see a lot more early signing period. It feels like National Signing Day to me because just about everybody is signing. Some have, some will, some won't. And we'll talk about all that as we move forward today. We'll have our SEC football power rankings. One, to give a snapshot at the end of the season, but also to go back to my week one rankings and see how things have shaken out. We'll do a little bit of that. J.D. Piquel is going to be with us a little bit later. It is What If Wednesday. We'll get some of those from you in the Bayou Ford chat as well as on Twitter, and we'll continuously update you on LSU's signing class. Sounds like Deuce Gerald, LSU commitment, defensive lineman from Georgia, is set to announce in 30 minutes if he's going to sign or not. Georgia Tech making a late push there. We'll see if LSU can pull him in. Trenton Henderson has not sent in his paperwork either. There's a number that have not. So let's kind of get into what has happened today for LSU. LSU this morning woke up with 15 commitments, and you all understand the situation that LSU's in. Of these 15 commitments, you only have a couple that committed to Lane Kiffin. Ryan Moret, a three-star offensive lineman, committed to Lane Kiffin, flipped from Ole Miss, and J.C. Anderson, a tight end from Decatur, Illinois, was committed to Ole Miss and flipped and committed to Lane Kiffin. Everybody else involved here committed to Brian Kelly's class. So you had 15 of those guys. You look at that group, and you still have 6 of them who have not put pen to paper. Lamar Brown, 5-star defensive lineman from right here in Baton Rouge, U-High, #1 player in the country. We know that Lamar Brown was at the LSU football operations building on Sunday when Lane Kiffin got there, or in the hours that followed. They sat down and had a conversation. He reaffirmed his commitment to LSU. In the hours that have passed over the last 2 days, those conversations have been ongoing between Lamar Brown and LSU. We know that Texas A&M made a push for him initially pre-commitment, and we know that Lamar Brown feels really good about LSU. He visited LSU many times. It's easy. He's from Baton Rouge. He goes to school on the campus. I think LSU is his preferred destination. I think that's obvious. But there is still question about LSU's defensive staff. Will Blake Baker be LSU's defensive coordinator? We don't know. Will LSU's position coach staff, specifically Kyle Williams, be around moving forward? We don't know. So Lamar Brown is taking a we don't know approach, and he has not put pen to paper. We know that LSU is aggressively pursuing his signature in the next 2 days. We know that he has 2 days to make that call, and he doesn't have to sign with anybody today or Thursday or Friday. But if he doesn't in those 3 days, then you have to wait until the second signing period. So you're waiting to see on Lamar Brown, although I think the feeling is pretty good around LSU right this second. Things can change if Blake Baker becomes the Tulane head coach and LSU's defensive staff undergoes a significant shakeup. To this point, that hasn't happened, so Lamar Brown they're waiting for. I mentioned Deuce Gerald's. We're expecting an announcement on that in half an hour. Trenton Henderson, the 4-star edge rusher from Pensacola, Florida. Big-time prospect, committed to the Brian Kelly staff. His paperwork is not in. The feeling is that that could happen later today. Haven Finney, big-time cornerback commitment from Los Angeles. The reporting is from multiple outlets that Haven Finney wants to go to LSU, but he wants to play for Corey Raymond. And Corey Raymond right now is not assured a spot, as far as we know, on Lane Kiffin's staff. Now, we know that Frank Wilson has been a hot topic. We've discussed it. And we know that Corey Raymond is a hot topic. We know what the situation is with Blake Baker. That's a Tulane or LSU thing. But with Corey Raymond, here's my thing. And this is what Haven Finney's waiting on. He wants to know where Corey Raymond's going to be. We talked yesterday to Sam Spiegelman. He thinks Haven Finney would have committed to Florida while Corey Raymond was there. Corey Raymond came to LSU. Haven Finney committed to LSU. Lane Kiffin's offensive staff is coming with him in significant numbers. And if that squeezes some guys on the offensive staff at LSU out, I may disagree or agree. We'll see, but I understand where that is. There are no defensive staffers coming with Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss to LSU. In my estimation, this is my opinion, there is no one he could hire as a defensive backs coach, cornerbacks coach, whatever, that's better than Corey Raymond. In my opinion, over the course of the last 3 days, Lane Kiffin should have sat down with Corey Raymond and said, I want you here. Here's what your contract says. Here's what we're going to do. I'd like you to be here and make a commitment, and we want you to move forward recruiting and coaching this football team because you're the best in the country and you belong here. That's what I would have done. That doesn't take long. I know he's doing a lot of things right now, and I'm not 100% certain that hasn't happened, but we don't know about it if it has. If it hasn't, it should have happened. It's a 20-minute conversation, and it's important, and it should have happened, and then Haven Finney should sign on the dotted line. This is not a Haven Finney thing. I'd love to have Haven Finney at LSU. I think he's a heck of a prospect. And basically, I trust anybody that Corey Raymond signs to play defensive back at LSU. But the fact that that conversation may not have happened, to me, is a misstep. Fix it. Get Corey Raymond committed long-term, and then boom. You get Haven Finney in his class, and you move forward with one of the best position coaches in college football. That's my piece on Haven Finney. Dylan Purder, 4-star safety from Tuskegee, Alabama. I don't know how to pronounce that word. Tuskegee, I don't know. He's from Alabama. There may be a signature coming. There may not be. We'll see. We're waiting on that. And then Bryson Cooley, also kind of on the fence there, 4-star offensive tackle from Laurel, Mississippi. We'll see. Those papers have not come in. So that's what you're looking for. Lamar Brown, Deuce Geralds, Trenton Henderson, Haven Finney, Dylan Purder, Bryson Cooley have not sent their paperwork in to our knowledge. LSU has had a very good day collecting paperwork with a small class. Miami signed 29 guys earlier. 29 guys by 2 o'clock p.m. Miami time. That's a crazy amount of people. But LSU has gotten paperwork in from Jabari Mack, big-time wide receiver from New Orleans. Bryson Martinez, big-time offensive tackle, very athletic player from Gonzales, a 4-star. Braden Allen did sign with LSU from Lafayette, wide receiver, looked at Ole Miss very hard with Lane Kiffin's offense, decided to commit to Oklahoma. Lane Kiffin shows up at LSU. Braden Allen, whose brother Jordan signed at LSU and played for a couple years, he ends up at LSU football ops that Sunday, talks to Lane Kiffin. He's already signed with LSU. Dez Ellis, first Winsboro product since Booger McFarland to sign with LSU, 3-star cornerback. His paperwork is in. Isaiah Washington, a 3-star safety from Haynesville, more small-town North Louisiana boys coming this way. That's Isaiah Washington. Aiden Hall, this was one that was potentially on the fence because you know all these New Orleans guys are kind of looking at Frank Wilson. Aiden Hall, 4-star safety from Cal. His paperwork is in. I mentioned earlier today, J.C. Anderson, 4-star tight end from Decatur, Illinois. He flipped from Ole Miss in the last couple days. He's signed. Ryan Moret, 3-star offensive lineman from Miami. He was committed to Ole Miss. He flipped. He signed. Richard Anderson, he told everyone in New Orleans at his signing ceremony at Carr, y'all thought I wasn't signing. I'm signing, and signed his paperwork. Everyone that was there reported it. We have not gotten official word from LSU. He would have had to pull a heck of an okey doke if he didn't. He sat there with a document, signed it, told everyone he was signing it, and then everyone reported it. It's up everywhere. We just haven't gotten that official tweet from LSU that suggests the paperwork is in. That's one that was touch and go there for a little bit. I don't know to what degree, but certainly Richard Anderson and his representation have been in extensive conversations with LSU, with Lane Kiffin, with Blake Baker, with the crew here in Baton Rouge as to kind of what the future is. It's our understanding at LouisianaSports.net that was a meeting that happened yesterday, that it went very well. And Richard Anderson, who's always wanted to be at LSU, he was the first commitment into this class at LSU, has signed with LSU. I will let you know if that tweet comes across the wire, and it is officially official. Right now, we feel very good about it, but the official paperwork has not come through. So that's kind of a look at where LSU is right now. There's one more that I didn't get to because it was in the other category. Corey Barber, 4-star wide receiver from Pinson, Alabama, was a one-time Ole Miss commitment, had decommitted. Boom, he has signed with LSU. Ole Miss has done a very good job under Lane Kiffin of recruiting some not 5-star number 1 wide receiver types in the country and getting incredible production out of them. Trey Harris comes to mind as a transfer from Louisiana Tech, who was from the state of Louisiana. But they've done a really good job identifying guys. And when they came in, they felt really good about Corey Barber, who's a guy that they had pursued very, very heavily, and Braden Allen, who's a guy they had pursued very, very heavily. They looked at Kenny Darby, and it sounds like it was kind of like, hey, you might want to look elsewhere in this period. It's kind of what it looked like. Now, Kenny Darby had a heck of a career up at Airline and Bossier, but that may have been one where they said, hey, we're going to kind of go in this direction. You know how everyone feels about Jabari Mack. That's a guy that LSU has had committed for a long time out of Carr and that everyone feels very good about. He has signed, but Corey Barber does join. So while you have lost a couple of wide receiver commits from this class, you now, with paperwork in, have Jabari Mack, have Corey Barber, and have Braden Allen. So 3 high-profile wide receiver commits in this class. So we'll see what the next 2 hours, I guess, while I'm on hold. If y'all are looking for up-to-the-minute updates on LSU signing class, we have got a free signing day tracker right there on the top of LouisianaSports.net. As I mentioned, it's free. So you go there, and there's 3 categories: committed and unsigned, which is where you've currently got 6 names. You got signed with LSU, where you've currently got 3, 6, 9, 11. And then you've got decommitments flips from LSU. And to this point, right now, no one who has been committed to LSU over the last 24 hours, which you woke up with today, no one has decommitted nor flipped from LSU to this point. And that is a really, really good sign. It sounds like the general manager, Glasscock, that Ole Miss, that was at Ole Miss, that came with Lane Kiffin to Baton Rouge, has been very, very impressive in some of the meetings that they've had. He's kind of getting his feet on the ground with how LSU does things and the structure, but he's also got a way that he does things, and those are being implemented by the minute over there at LSU Ops. Right now, the priority is these players. With that comes the coaches, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more as we move forward today. Blake Baker's name and Tulane have been surfacing a lot over the course of the last 24 hours. That has not resolved itself to this point. The feeling is right now, I can tell you, that Blake Baker's feet are on the ground at LSU Ops and have been this morning, and that he is operating as LSU's defensive coordinator. Should an offer come in from Tulane, I think it's very, very likely he takes that job. It's just a matter of whether or not that offer comes, and right now I don't know whether it is or not, but he's right now operating as LSU's defensive coordinator and working through this signing day. And to this point, when you're talking about a coach who's been on the job for 2.5 days, and you look up at what LSU has in the bin and what they have not lost, it's been a really positive day for LSU's football program on this, as I'm going to call it, National Signing Day on this Wednesday. So lots to get to over the course of the next hour and change. We'll get you updated on Deuce Gerald's commitment. Well, not commitment. He's committed to LSU signature in the next 15, 18 minutes or so. We'll take a timeout, come back with more on this Wednesday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Swing Easy Golf Club in Baton Rouge, swingeasygcbr.com. You know, you don't really think about golf a lot in the winter because it's cold outside like today, damp outside like today, gets dark early like today, but Swing Easy Golf Club allows you to play some golf. You want to go play on the simulator? You can do it. There are 3 individual bays, comfortable seating, television, music out there. You can turn on Pebble Beach. You can turn on TPC Sawgrass. They play a pretty famous tournament over there in the state of Georgia. You can play where they play. It's awesome, and it's dry, and it's warm, and you can drink a cold beer and enjoy a round of golf. It doesn't take 5 hours. It only takes an hour and 10 minutes to play 18 holes over at Swing Easy Golf Club. You do hit chips. You do hit putts. It's just like playing a round of golf, but it's just out of the elements, which are not great this time of year at times in South Louisiana. Go by and see them, Segan at Perkins. If you love golf but would like to play golf in the winter, don't always get the opportunity, you can do it at Swing Easy Golf Club. You can find them online at swingeasygcbr.com. Swing Easy Golf Club here in Baton Rouge.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools.
Wednesday show is brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools. Looking to get in the pool of your dreams? Probably not today, although you could heat it and you could get in today, but standard pool time, really not applicable on this chilly day in December. That doesn't mean it's not time to reach out to the folks at Renaissance Homes and Pools and say, hey, springtime's always around the corner. I'd like to be in the pool by then. Let's start that conversation. And Joey Blanchard and his team would be happy to do that for you. Give you Joey's cell phone number, which is the beauty of it. He's the owner of the company. You deal with him. You deal with him for the consultation. You deal with him for the design. You deal with him for the digging, filling, finishing. He's there step by step. It's comforting knowing you're dealing with the owner of the company, and you will with Joey. 225-252-7745. Again, 225-252-7745. You can give Joey a call. You can also check him out at builtbyrenaissance.com. Builtbyrenaissance.com. All right, as I was just mentioning, Deuce Gerald's set to sign at 1:30 today. Not going to happen. Deuce Gerald's released a statement, said I was planning to sign this morning, but after speaking with my family, I've decided to give myself a couple more days to get to know the new staff at LSU. I'm still committed to LSU. I plan to make a final decision and sign by the end of the day on Friday. Go Tigers. So I'll take it as his word. I'm not going to go reach anything further than that. Obviously, he's there in Atlanta. Georgia Tech is going to make a push there. Brent Key just signed a contract extension today. He's got to take a chance to meet the new staff. Now, I'll tell you this, and this is not inside information at all. This is very public. Deuce Gerald's dad was a really good player at Ole Miss. It would surprise me if he did not know Lane Kiffin at all, because I'm sure that he had some conversations with Ole Miss early on. He's a very high-profile recruit who's a legacy to Ole Miss. So that probably is not a bridge too far. But, again, there's a possibility. I don't know how likely it is. There's a possibility Blake Baker could be Tulane's head coach in the next 5 hours. There's a possibility Blake Baker could be Tulane's next coach in the next 5 days. There's a possibility Tulane could hire somebody else tomorrow before lunch. I don't know where Tulane is in that process. We do know Blake Baker's a candidate. So if Blake Baker leaves and LSU's defensive staff is completely overhauled and none of those guys are coming from Ole Miss, they're staying with Pete Golding, you don't know who you're committing to. You don't know who you're playing for. And I get that. These offensive kids that have signed on the dotted line, like, they know. They know that Lane Kiffin's calling the plays. Charlie Weiss is going to be here. They brought wide receivers coach as well. Like, it's that there's some continuity. You know what the future is. Like it or not, you at least know. The uncertainty is probably the worst thing. And that's what LSU's dealing with defensively right now. And I don't know how much of that's LSU or Lane Kiffin's fault. It's just the nature of the cycle and the timing of the whole thing. So Deuce Gerald's a guy I know for sure that the Brian Kelly defensive staff, the Blake Baker defensive staff, really, really likes Deuce Gerald's, his prospects as a college player. He wants to go to LSU. It looks like that's what his statement says. But with the uncertainty, you understand why a young man would take a little bit of time. So we'll see how that plays out. But it sounds like right now, Deuce Gerald's, Haven Finney very much in a wait-and-see mode. I think Lamar Brown as well. Those are three huge defensive dominoes. Richards Anderson sounds like is in the boat. That's a great thing. But those defensive dominoes have yet to fall in their totality, and we'll see how that shakes out over the next couple of days. You have to sign by Friday, or else you have to wait until the next signing period. So that's put to bed briefly. We'll update as anything happens here until 3 o'clock. But for right now, we want to go back and hold myself accountable. I'm here. I'm accountable. Most of the stuff I say on this microphone is dumb and wrong. Sometimes I get stuff perfectly right. That was probably the case with my power rankings. We did it in week 1. We'll do it now that the regular season has concluded. Let's see how my power rankings stack up.
Hunt's SEC Power Rankings. The Georgia Bulldogs.
All right, I got Georgia at the top. This is as of right now. This is not week 1. We'll compare it to week 1 when we're done. This is right now. I've got Georgia now at the top. They have taken over for Texas A&M. That is obviously a result of A&M losing that game against Texas. They played a couple of really bad halves in their last couple of games. Georgia looks good. They didn't play well on offense against Georgia Tech, but they were more physical. They won the game. I think Georgia's the best team in the league right now.
Texas A&M!
I'm not dumping A&M too far. I've got them right there at number 2. They still have a lot to like on that team. They are complete. They play good defense. They run the ball pretty well. Their passing game is explosive. They make plays on special teams. They're really good still, but they're not the best team in the league. I've moved Georgia into that spot.
The Ole Miss Rebels.
I do think Ole Miss is a complete team. I know that Lane Kiffin's not going to be their offensive coordinator for the playoff. Charlie Weiss is, and I think he'll do a pretty good job calling plays. It's a team with a good quarterback. It's a team with a good running game. It's a team with a pretty damn good defense. I like Ole Miss. I've got them at number 3.
The Oklahoma Sooners.
Oklahoma's offense stinks. It does. It's bad. But their defense is very good, and their quarterback can make some plays. I know that they beat Alabama, and you'll hear from the Tide here coming up, but I like Oklahoma's strength in the defense and the ability of the quarterback to make some plays here and there. They were not great against LSU. Don't get me wrong. We didn't even talk about that game the first 2 days of this week, which is wild. But I do have Oklahoma at number 4.
The Alabama Crimson Tide.
I hated what I saw from Alabama in that Auburn game in short yardage. I hated it. They were running reverses. They were running play action, crazy throwbacks. fourth down, they run that. They cannot run the ball, and they're not great stopping the run. I think Alabama is a dangerous team for 4 quarters. I think it's possible they could beat Georgia in the Georgia Dome on Saturday. It's impossible for them to win a national championship. It is impossible. They do not run the ball well enough, and I don't like them defensively. I think it's a soft team. I think Kalen DeBoer has a soft team. Now, LSU's had a soft team for the last couple of years, and they've at times been really difficult to beat because they have skill position players and they have a good quarterback and all those kind of things. And Alabama's got that for 4 quarters, not for a month. I don't like Alabama in that way.
The Texas Longhorns.
Texas played well against A&M. They played well against A&M. Arch had a really good second half there. The defense is very athletic. They're not the number 1 team in the country like we thought they might be. They're not the disaster I thought they were when they lost in Gainesville. I think they're fair at number 6.
The Vanderbilt Commodores.
Vandy moves all the way up to 7. I think this might be a high water mark for Vandy. I picked Tennessee to beat them last week in Knoxville. They embarrassed Tennessee in Knoxville. Dominated Tennessee in Knoxville. And I would not bat an eye if they gave the Heisman Trophy to Diego Pavia. I know his numbers have not been superb against the best teams on the schedule, but they've been pretty damn good, and you do have to take into account who he's playing for and what he's done there. I think Vanderbilt is a solid football team. They're not going to make the playoff, but I've got them up to number 7.
The Tennessee Volunteers.
Had to bump Tennessee down to 8, and I could make the case they should probably be lower, but I still think that they can throw it pretty well. Their defense has some issues that are significant, and they were really good on defense last year. Tim Beck's got to get that figured out, but I like their passing game. I think they're athletic. By no means are they great. They're 8th on the power rankings, but I think that they were better than I thought they were preseason, and we'll get into that.
The Missouri Tigers.
I could hear an argument Missouri should be above Tennessee. I could. I could get on board with that. You got Purbuell back, but am I really going to go overboard on the fact that they beat Arkansas that didn't win a league game? I couldn't quite get there. I realize beating Arkansas is better than getting embarrassed by Vanderbilt. Maybe make a change there, but I think Tennessee did some good things this year. Missouri did some good things this year. I'm jaded by Missouri's schedule, quite frankly, and that's why I've got them at number 9.
The LSU Tigers.
I left LSU at 10. The defense played great, as it does. In Oklahoma, the offense played awful, as it does. That's what LSU is, and the rest of the teams, LSU really included from 10 on down, are bad.
The Florida Gators.
Florida's bad, but they avoided the Q word. They avoided quit. Thought quit was an option when they were getting blown out by Kentucky, not showing up. It looked bad, but they showed up against Florida State. So credit to them. Florida State stinks. Florida stinks, but they stink to the 11th best team in the league.
The Kentucky Wildcats.
I know Kentucky beat Florida by 100. I know. I saw it. I can't be beholden to head-to-head on every single matchup. It doesn't work. What I saw from Kentucky the last 2 weeks, getting just whitewashed, just crushed 2 weeks in a row. I got to respond to that. I moved Florida ahead of them. I think if they play Florida on a neutral field, Florida might win that game. That may be a stupid thing to say because of the way that game went initially, but I'm here. That's what I got. I think Florida's better.
The Mississippi State Bulldogs.
State went 1-7, which is not good. Jeff Levy's 1-15, but they were at least scrappy. They fought with Ole Miss. It got away from them in the fourth quarter, but they scored a touchdown early. You're stuck in the game. They're just not good enough to win games, but they're better than teams behind them.
The Auburn Tigers.
Auburn's defense is good, but the offense is so bad. It's so bad. And they won more games than Mississippi State, and maybe I should put Auburn in front of Mississippi State, but I felt Mississippi State fight and scrap, and I saw them take a 2-score lead on Texas, and I saw them play heads up with some really good teams, and I just felt like Auburn. I realized they played heads up with Alabama. That was on their home field too. It's what and what down here. You got real flaws. Auburn, 14.
The South Carolina Gamecocks.
Bad squad. Bad offense, bad defense, bad running game, bad passing game, bad run defense, bad pass defense. Quarterback underachieved, grossly regressed this year. Bad offensive coordinator, bad stuff.
The Arkansas Razorbacks.
The worst. I told you on Wednesday last week, and I was picking the games for the weekend. I said, I have picked Arkansas to cover as an underdog like every week because they're going to score a lot of points. So you take the points, you hope Arkansas scores enough. And I told you last Wednesday I'm off Arkansas. They're awful. And Missouri went into Fayetteville and beat the brakes off them because they're awful. They're the worst team. So Arkansas, 60. That's my SEC Power Rankings. Let's briefly go through how this stacks up over the course of the season. I had Georgia at the top, and they finished at the top. So that was level. A&M, I had 5th. They're up to 2, so that was a 3-spot miss. I thought A&M would be pretty good. They're better than I thought. Ole Miss, I had down at 8. I thought Ole Miss would take a step back, losing all that talent, losing their quarterback. They did not. They're much better than I thought. I missed them by 5 spots. I had them at 8. They were 3. Oklahoma, I had at 7. I knew their defense would be good. I didn't fully trust the offense, and turns out that was probably pretty smart, but I had them worse than they actually were. They were 7th, and they finished 4th. Bama, I had it 4th, entering, and they finished 5th. I was pretty close on Bama. Texas, I had it 2, and they backed up to 6. I think everybody thought Texas would be better, and the offense just didn't show up for a month and a half. It's been better the last month. Their defense is pretty good, but I missed on Texas. Vanderbilt's one of the biggest misses, obviously, as you would imagine. I had Vanderbilt at 13, not 16, where I usually put them. I had them at 13. They were all the way up to 7. Tennessee, I thought was going to be bad. I thought that their defense would be crippled. I thought that their offense would be bad because the running game, and they were bringing in a quarterback that nobody really wanted, in Aguilar. Well, he led the league in passing, and so Vols were not 12th as I had them. They moved up to 8. Missouri, I was right on. I had them at 10th. They finished at 9th. LSU, complete whiff. I had LSU at 3rd. They're 10th. Just complete whiff on the offense at LSU. They were terrible offensively, and I did not see that coming to the extent that it did. Florida, I thought would be Billy Napier's best team. Turns out it was not. I had them at 6. They finished at 11. Kentucky, I had them awful. They were awful, but they were less awful than some of the teams behind them. I thought they'd be 15th. They were up to 12. Mississippi State, I had at 16, dead last. They go to 13th. Auburn, I thought would be bad. I had them 11th. I just did not trust this Hugh Freeze with no quarterback. Jackson Arnold, didn't think they'd be good. I had them at 11. They finished at 14. South Carolina, big tumbler, the biggest tumbler outside of LSU. I had South Carolina at number 9. They finish at 15th. And then Arkansas, I figured would be bad. They were bad. I had them at 14th, down to 16th. So the biggest misses for me, Vanderbilt, I was 6 spots shy on. LSU, I was 7 spots too bullish on. And South Carolina was a big miss by me. I had them at number 9. They were down at 15th. So that's a bow on SEC football power rankings for the win days throughout the football season. All right, let's come back. What If Wednesday next?
The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hitter's House at Marucci. Time to get on by the Hitter's House at Marucci. Incredible deals Monday through Friday, now until December the 14th. Still got plenty of time to get on by. They're open from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Go on the Marucci campus tour there on campus. You can get 20% off in the Hitter's House that same day. So if you go on the tour, go shopping, 20% off. For more information and tickets, you can go to maruccisports.com/campus-tour. maruccisports.com/campus-tour. They've got footwear, they've got bats, they've got all the brands that you're looking for, whether it's Marucci, Victus, Balm, Lizard Skin, The Stable. Also got great footwear, as I mentioned. So get on by the Hitter's House. If you got a fast pitch athlete in your life, they've got the Marucci Asura. Got to come check it out. Hit in the cages. Get some great deals at the Hitter's House now through December 14th, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's the Hitter's House at Marucci.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools.
All right, chugging along here. Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools. As we mentioned in the last segment, just hopping in, Deuce Gerald's LSU defensive line commitment from Sewanee, Georgia, has been committed to LSU since, let me do that in my head, that is that's August. Since August of this year, has decided he's not going to sign with anyone today, going to take a little time to meet the LSU staff, and expects to sign his letter of intent coming up before Friday's deadline. The hope is that that's with LSU, but certainly he's going to explore options, including LSU, with a new staff in play. So that's something that we wanted to pass along, as that has happened in the last 15 minutes or so. Right now, it's What If Wednesday. No, it's not. Yeah.
Space. Reality. It's more than a linear path. where a single choice can branch out into infinite realities. Follow me and ponder the question, what if?
Okay, so it is What If Wednesday.
It is What If Wednesday. I had a whole brain cramp there about something. I don't even know what happened, but just Pistons were firing, whatever. It's live radio. It happens.
That was a Ben Roethlisberger pump fake. I definitely jumped on that one. So what if Hunt Palmer was on the playoff committee?
They need me on the committee. They need some reasonable people on the committee. I put this tweet out last night. I said, the only thing that's good about your team not being anywhere near the discussion for the college football playoff is not having to just absolutely listen to everyone complaining all the time, every time they release anything. And apparently, this is the worst deal. I would suggest that I would introduce probably a different perspective than most on the college football playoff. Now, that may not be good for anything because you're the only one on the committee that feels a certain way. That's not going to carry much weight in a room where everybody disagrees with you. But I'm going to weigh strength of schedule significantly. I'm going to tell these awful teams that are winning pathetic conferences to go away. And I'm going to weigh wins more than I'm going to weigh losses. And that's not the way we've ever done things in college football. It's always, always, always what's on the other side of the dash. If you have 3 losses, you're worse than the team with 2 losses. Well, what if I played harder games? We don't care. 2 losses, you're in. 1 loss, you're in. 3 loss, you're out. It's the way we've always operated. And they didn't do anything different last year, and they didn't do anything different in the years past in the 4-team playoff, and they never do. And I would, because I'm going to let Vanderbilt and Texas in this discussion way more quickly than these goofballs in the ACC and the Big 12 that I don't care about. And that's going to be my take on the whole situation. I'm also not going to be completely beholden all the time to head-to-head like most people are, because there's a whole body of work, and the head-to-head is a part of it. So just because there's a head-to-head result does not always trump everything else. It's like I'm not going to sit here and tell you last year that Kentucky deserves to get in more than Ole Miss, because Kentucky lost 7 games and was terrible and won over the course of 1 3-hour game. Ole Miss was way better. They lost the game. It happens. Just some things that I would say. I'm not here to tell you what my 12 teams would be. I'll react to that next week when we've got a bracket and we've got everyone's complete body of work. And I'll tell you if I think some of the things that they've done are wrong, but apparently everyone thinks that they're crazy. I don't have to live in that world, unfortunately, because LSU's not even close, so I don't.
Unfortunately, for sure, because we could definitely get into some of the madness.
I'd love to.
About this.
I do it every June with the baseball selection, just not with football.
Okay, so what if Michael Ford never stepped out of bounds in overtime against Bama? LSU wins 12-6 and a rematch never happened.
So that's not how it would have gone. In fact, that's not your fault because that's how it. Oh yeah, it is 12-6. That's right, because it was 9-6. That's how it went. That's a good question. I don't think that changes things.
Yes.
I don't think that there's a difference in what points LSU scored in overtime as far as, because in my head they're going to look at that and say it was 6-6. And whether it went to 9-6 or 12-6, LSU and Bama played it was 6-6. So now I'm comparing Bama to Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State lost to an atrocious team in Iowa State, and Alabama lost to the best team at that point we had seen. So we're going to let Alabama have a second swing. I think if LSU wins that game 21-0 like Bama did to get to LSU, yeah, that's over. But once it got to overtime, I don't think the fact that it was a field goal as opposed to a touchdown was the difference. I think they had understood that those 2 teams had played. They're the best 2 teams, and we're going to watch them again. Yep. You can, as an LSU fan, feel any way you want about that. I'm just telling you that's why that happened.
Yep. What if BK retained Blake Baker and Corey Raymond and Frank Wilson when he first was hired? Yeah,
Wilson was there, but and these are all from the Bayou Ford chat, and we just copy and pasted them in there, so thanks to y'all for sending these this way. The second defense would have been significantly better if he'd let Blake Baker be the coordinator. The second defense would not have been historically terrible. How good it would have been, I'm not sure. But the personnel was awful, and the coaching was awful. The communication was awful. The preparation was awful. The execution was awful. The toxicity that existed in that defensive room was awful. Everything was awful, and it just would not have been that way with Blake Baker. Say whatever you will about Blake Baker's scheme. And if you want to say that he's awesome and you've got to keep him, okay. If you want to say that he never stops running quarterbacks and I don't need to see him stay, okay. Like, however you want to feel about what he does scheme-wise, you cannot question the culture he cultivates with those players. I listen to them every Tuesday talk about Blake Baker. they adore him. They want to play so hard for him. He brings awesome energy every day, and they love it. So I'm not saying they'd have been the best defense in LSU history in 2023. I am saying that they would have played harder, and I think they would have been better. To what degree, we'll see. You didn't need to be too good to win a championship with that offense, but they were bad, so it would have been a lot better.
You just needed average.
Yep.
Just needed average. What if Blake Baker goes to Tulane? Who do we go after as DC?
So when that happens, if that happens, and to be clear, I don't know that it is happening, but I do believe this. If Blake Baker's offered that job, he's going to take it. That's what I think. And so we'll see if Tulane offers him the job. But if he goes to Tulane, I don't know any names. DJ Durkin was a very obvious name because he worked with Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. Then he went to Texas A&M. Then he went to Auburn. But Durkin had a relationship. If he was going to leave Auburn, he's been in the SEC all over the place. I think there's a real chance he could have ended up at LSU. Beyond that, there's not a lot of obvious answers with Lane Kiffin ties. So I would go to like the highest profile names. Jim Knowles had the best defense in the country at Ohio State last year. Then he jumped to Penn State this year. Well, now Penn State has no program. They have no coach. They have the 160th ranked recruiting class. Like, he's just flapping in the breeze up there in Happy Valley. If he wants a big paycheck, another big program, he went from Oklahoma State, where he was great there. Ohio State, great there. Penn State had a good year there. Not great. Their offense was bad, and they lost a lot of games, but statistically they were decent on defense. That's a name that I think LSU could potentially lure here. Doesn't have a lot of ties to the South. He did coach at Ole Miss for David Cutcliffe for 1 year in 2003. But that's a name that I looked at. And then also, I looked at Texas Tech's defensive coordinator, Steele Wood.
Steele Wood.
He worked at Tulane a couple of years ago, and then he was at Houston last year, and now he's at Texas Tech this year, and he has been great at all three stops. He's 40 years old. Oh, yeah. He worked at Tulane, has got some ties there. I don't know if he knows Lane Kiffin at all. I don't know what he's making at Texas Tech. They're throwing money around like crazy. I don't know if he wants to leave, but like at this point, if I don't have ties to Kiffin, I'm looking at national names that make sense to be a big splash. Knowles and Wood, I think, makes sense.
I like Steele Wood just off his name. Yeah. I don't know nothing about him, but that name is a Hall of Fame name.
I had never heard of him until 72 hours ago. And then I started looking up defensive coordinators in case LSU needed one, and was like, well, Texas Tech's got a good defense. Who's their coordinator? I was like, oh, he was at Tulane. Wood. So if you look at the 2 years before Texas Tech, Tulane and Houston, what are LSU's two metropolitan cities that they recruit? New Orleans and Houston. Yeah. So he's been there. Now, not a long time, only 2 years, but I'll look at it.
All right, so what if Charlie Weiss Jr. takes Ole Miss deep into the playoffs? Does that change anything?
I don't know. It means there's something to the fact that Charlie Weiss went back to Ole Miss.
Yes.
And the thought from Oxford, from those that cover Ole Miss, is that they feel like Charlie Weiss was like kidnapped and brought to Baton Rouge. That feels a little unlikely. But the thought is in Oxford, well, Lane Kiffin like forced a contract on him and I don't know if he has signed a contract. I don't know if he's signed just an MOU. I don't know if whether or not the Board of Supervisors have to approve that contract the next meeting they have, which is a week away. Like, I'm not really sure how all that works out. I think it's telling that he's going back to Oxford to coach a little bit, and he obviously feels like he owes it to those players. But he obviously has a tie to Lane Kiffin as well, and he got on the plane to come down here. So if he were to lead them to the national final and all of a sudden, I don't know what his contract says at LSU, if he's able to get out of that and stay there with Pete Golding, like it wouldn't be the most shocking thing that ever happened, but I don't know any of those details. So anything I would say on that is pure speculation.
All right, so what if Trinidad Chambliss gets another year of eligibility? Does he follow Kiffin to Baton Rouge?
Well, and look, the coverage out of Oxford, as you would imagine, is very, very blue and red laced, and
very
the coverage down here is very purple and gold laced, and we get how that works. But the feeling is that the only player who really stood up for Lane Kiffin in the meeting that they had was Trinidad Chambliss.
Really?
And Trinidad Chambliss was recruited to Ole Miss by Lane Kiffin and given a chance by Lane Kiffin. And then Lane Kiffin didn't go back to Austin Simmons. He stuck with it. Wouldn't stun me if Trinidad Chambliss ended up in Baton Rouge. That's not a report that he is. I'm not hearing that he is. It just wouldn't stun me if he got that extra year. And that would make LSU a very, very popular team next year, depending on what the portal looks like the rest of the way. So that's how I feel about that.
All right, so what if Kiffin stays in Oxford? Who would have been the next choice? And don't say Eli Drinkowitz.
Feels like Drink signing that contract extension just as Florida and LSU were about to announce their coaches probably meant there was something there. And once that those didn't come to fruition, he signed on the dotted line. So I think that it's very, very possible Eli Drinkowitz was the next on LSU's list. But we'll never know.
Jake would have loved that.
Yep. That's it for Take It or Leave It here. Nope, that's not Take It or Leave It. That's What If Wednesday. We're just
Gotta keep it
juggling
moving. We gotta keep
segments,
it
just
chugging.
doing things. Keith Carter is doing a media tour in Mississippi. He went on Super Talk Mississippi. He went on the Blue Sky Live podcast with the folks from 24/7. And he had some things to say, and I've got some things to say about the way that this is now. Things are being talked about that went on over the weekend. I've got my thoughts on it next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
First American Bank and Trust. First American Bank and Trust. Just part of the fabric of our communities down here in Southeast Louisiana. No matter what community you're a part of. If you're just outside of Baton Rouge, maybe in Dutchtown or there Jones Creek. If you're down a little bit further southeast in St. John or St. James. Maybe if you're north of that, St. Tammany, Tangipahoa. There's a First American Bank and Trust branch very near you. There's 25 locations down here, and it is just a community feel to your bank. It's comforting to know when you work with your bank that you're dealing with local decision makers and local people. You don't have to call some sinner in Chicago who doesn't know anything about you to figure out your issue. You just call someone in your community. And don't think, just a little old mom and pop bank. No, 25 locations, 115 years here in South Louisiana. Got people that have been with them for 25 plus years on average. They got a lot of resources. It's just the hometown feel that separates First American Bank and Trust. Get on by one of the branches and see them. It's First American Bank and Trust.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Renaissance Homes and Pools.
So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. I know that pretty much everyone in Baton Rouge is ready to move on. And those in Oxford are still kicking around what's happened there over the last 2 weeks. But Keith Carter is now going on a media tour. He went on Super Talk Mississippi with Richard Cross. He went on with the folks at Rebels 247 with Chase Parham. And I listened to the interview with Chase. It was about 40 minutes long. And the contention is that there were discussions. They were in limbo for a while. That ultimately they wanted to keep things moving with Lane Kiffin and that team to finish the season, the regular season at 11-1. But he said that, look, there was never an option, and Lane Kiffin had known for weeks that he was never going to be able to leave and then coach Ole Miss in the playoff. Like, that was never an option. He said the tricky part was going to be if they got to the SC championship game. He wasn't sure if Lane Kiffin was going to be able to coach, but it was going to make things tricky. And so, okay, that's fine. And he said that Lane Kiffin has not been completely truthful with some of the things he said and put out. That's fine. You hear Ole Miss players come out of their meetings and look at the tweets and dispute that. And Lane Kiffin said the team wanted him to coach, and the team said, no, nobody here wanted you to coach. And I expect Ole Miss to come out and present a united front. They've got things to do this month that are very important, and they've kept the band together to an extent. The defense is there. They brought their offensive coordinator back. They've got their running backs coach there, and they're going to move forward and try to play in the playoff. And I don't expect them to come out and start, having guys say, "Hey, I want to go play for Coach Kiffin." After, they're going to be united until they get to the end of the season, and we'll see what happens with that roster. But the interesting part, beyond the Kiffin half-truths, and I told you on Monday, I did not think Lane Kiffin handled this great. I don't. That doesn't mean he's going to do a bad job at LSU, or I'm not pulling for him with every fiber of my being. I am. I think he was a little disillusioned at the end that he was going to be able to coach Ole Miss in the playoff and then go take the LSU job. And we said that because you can't have the LSU head coach in the Ole Miss facility for a month. And Ole Miss agreed with that. And they said, go. And Lane Kiffin went. He couldn't coach the playoff. He left. But the part that gets a little bit tricky is when they asked Keith Carter about, hey, you're letting Charlie Weiss come back. And he said, well, look, we're trying to do everything the best we can for our players. And he's not going to be recruiting. He said this to Chase Parham. He's not going to be recruiting our players. That's ridiculous. It's is it? That's ridiculous. But saying Lane Kiffin wouldn't is ridiculous. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth there. We all understand that the decision was made that the head coach was trading on the team. And the head coach was abandoning the team, so we got to kick the head coach out. But this is the best season in school history. We don't know when this is going to happen again. And we do need someone to help us call plays. So we're going to abandon those principles that said this guy's a traitor and essentially tell Charlie to come back and handle this. That's the way. It's a little bit disingenuous from that perspective. Now, somebody asked me in What If Wednesday if Charlie Weiss could return to Ole Miss. And my thought is probably not. If he got on the plane to come to Baton Rouge, was helping LSU recruit, and has signed a contract with LSU, I don't think he's going to go back to Ole Miss. I haven't seen the contract. I don't know if it's an MOU or an actual contract. I don't know if the Board of Supervisors has to approve it at their next meeting for it to be binding. Like, I don't really know those types of things, and we'll find out over the next couple of weeks. And so if Charlie Weiss goes back to Oxford, like, everything that Keith Carter's saying makes a lot of sense. But if he doesn't, and he comes back to LSU just the day after Ole Miss loses, and he apparently, as Keith Carter said today, Charlie Weiss is in Baton Rouge on signing day. Just feels like he's going to be here. They're not able to go as far as they really want to go because they know that they're crippling this football team if they hold the same pride for Charlie Weiss that they did with Lane Kiffin. So Lane Kiffin is not blameless here, but Ole Miss is not completely the victim here either. It was a messy deal. I said that on Monday. I'm not here just pumping the purple and gold sunshine. I think Lane Kiffin handled some things poorly. I think LSU's administration did things wonderfully, and I think that some things on the way out of Oxford were messy, and I think that Ole Miss is trying to cover a little bit and just play the complete victim role here, which I think is probably not exactly the case either. We're not going to spend a lot of time more on that as we keep moving forward. We'll see what Charlie Weiss decides to do. We got to pause for Sports Center. We'll come back with hour number 2, including J.D. Piquel next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is the website. Jonathan Carbo and his team are happy to help you with your employee benefits. If you are a business owner and you're struggling with these rate increases for your benefits, you're struggling looking at those health insurance premiums, and you're going, you're not alone, because as Jonathan has told me in the last couple of weeks, a lot of folks are seeing one specific benefits carrier really driving those premiums up, and that can be tough on a bottom line for a business. So if you need a second option or need someone to help you navigate the waters of employee benefits, which are complex, the Highland Insurance Group is happy to help you out with that. They do it every single day. They're based here in Baton Rouge. They can help you out statewide, whether it's your property and casualty, which I always tell you about, or your employee benefits, including your health insurance. They can do it at the Highland Insurance Group. You can check them out here in Baton Rouge. You can find them online at HighlandIG.com. It's the Highland Insurance Group. They're online at HighlandIG.com.